31 model years. From 1994 to 2025, the Harley-Davidson Road King sat in the catalog, while nearly everything around it got redesigned, renamed, or quietly killed off. And now it's gone too. The 2026 lineup doesn't have one. Here's the part that should stop you. The bikes that vanish from the showroom floor are almost never the bikes that vanish from the garage. You already know a guy who still has his. He's had it since his kids were in high school. He's turned down 3 serious offers, and the last one was cash. That gap between what gets discontinued and what gets kept is the whole subject here. And there's one machine on this list you'd swear owners would have dumped years ago. It has a documented engine condition serious enough that Harley pushed a technical service bulletin about it through the NHTSA. Owners kept it anyway. Not out of stubbornness, not out of denial. There's a number behind it, and it isn't the number you'd guess. So let's be precise about what we're measuring, because it isn't reliability. A reliability ranking answers a different question. How often does it break? And if that's all you wanted, Consumer Reports already handled it. Their 4-year owner survey put Yamaha, Suzuki, Honda, and Kawasaki all under a 16% failure rate, while Can-Am came back at 42% and Ducati at 33%. Clean numbers, useful numbers, and they explain almost nothing about which bikes people refuse to sell, because if failure rate drove ownership length, half the country would be riding Suzuki, and the Harley dealer network would have collapsed 30 years ago. It didn't. So what are we actually tracking? 4 things you can verify without taking anyone's word for it. How long the model stayed in production, how deep the part supply runs a decade after the last one shipped, how far you have to ride to reach a dealer who can actually service it, and what the resale figure does to the math when you finally think about letting it go. No manufacturer publishes an ownership tenure chart. There's a reason for that. A bike people keep for 20 years is a bike they aren't financing a replacement for. But every one of those 4 inputs is public, and together they tell you something the spec sheet never will. And one more input, the one that quietly outweighs the rest. What does it cost to fix the worst realistic failure, measured against what it costs to walk away and buy something else? That ratio is the whole game, and almost nobody frames a buying decision around it. Which brings up the contradiction. The brand with the best documented failure rate is not the brand riders hold on to longest. Not close. And the first 2 bikes on this list stopped being available new before you finish paying off something newer. Quick thing before the first pair. This channel takes no brand money, no press bikes, no dealer arrangements, which is exactly why the next segment names a model line Harley just discontinued and explains what that does to your resale position. Subscribe if that's the version you want. Start with the 2 machines that outlive their own model lines, because they're a matched pair and the second one contradicts the first. The Road King first. Introduced in 1994, and by the end it was the last survivor of a family that once had a Road King Custom, a Road King Classic, and a police variant running alongside it. The 2025 Road King Special closed the book at $25,749 NSRP. What kept it in garages wasn't performance. It's a heavy touring chassis with a windshield instead of a fairing, and on paper, that's a downgrade. Ask a man who's ridden one for 15 years why he won't sell, and you'll get some version of the same answer. There's nothing on it to break that he can't reach. No frame-mounted fairing to pull. No infotainment stack to fail out of warranty. The detachable windshield and bags come off in the driveway in about 4 minutes, and then it's a standard again. That's not nostalgia talking. That's a maintenance argument, and it holds up. But the surface answer, simple bike, fewer failure points, hides the thing riders don't say out loud in the dealership. When you've been riding 40 years, the bike stops being transportation and starts being the last proof that you still do this. Selling it isn't a transaction. It's a statement about what you've decided you are now. And that's precisely the pressure a dealer's trade-in desk is built to work on, because the trade-up cycle is where the margin lives. So the Road King owner who won't sell is making a decision that looks emotional and is actually structurally sound. He owns a bike with a 31-year parts ecosystem, an enormous aftermarket, and a service procedure any competent independent shop in the country already knows. What exactly is the upgrade? Now the contradiction. The Electra Glide Ultra Classic and the Ultra Limited worked the opposite way, and their owners kept them for the opposite reason. Where the Road King survived by having less, the Ultra survived by having everything, and then being deleted anyway. Harley trimmed the fully dressed Ultra line and moved the long-haul slot to the 2025 Street Glide Ultra at $30,749. That's meaning a rider who wanted the Batwing, the lowers, the tour pack, and the passenger setup as a factory package watched that configuration turn into a dealer-installed accessory list. So think about what happens to a guy who already owns one. His bike didn't get worse. The replacement path got worse. Every year, the discontinued full dresser sits in his garage. The argument for trading it shrinks, because what he'd be trading into is the same equipment sold to him a second time, a la carte, at 2026 pricing. That's not sentiment keeping that bike. And it's the same arithmetic that's about to explain a machine with a genuinely bad service record that nobody sells either. And there's a detail in the Ultra story that most coverage skipped entirely. When a manufacturer discontinues a configuration rather than a model, the used examples of that configuration stop competing with new inventory. They start competing with nothing. There is no 2026 version of what that rider owns, which does something strange to the resale number. It holds or it climbs on a bike with 110,000 miles on it. At the exact moment, conventional depreciation says it should be worthless. Ask any dealer what a clean, sorted, late production full dresser trades for right now, and watch how carefully he phrases the answer. So the man who never sold isn't the man who missed his window. He's the man who's now holding something the factory can't make anymore, in a market where the buyers who want it specifically have nowhere else to go. That's an uncomfortable thing to realize if you traded yours in 2023 because a salesman explained that the payment difference was manageable. One more thing about this pair, and it matters more than either bike individually. Both of them are pre-2017 in most garages, which means both of them are running the Twin Cam 103 or Twin Cam 110 rather than what replaced it. Because here's where the pattern breaks. In 2017, Harley launched the Milwaukee 8 across touring and select softail models. 8 valves, 4 per cylinder, sold in 107, 114, and 117 cubic inches. And the early ones had a problem. Not a rumor, not a forum theory. Harley published Technical Service Bulletin M1450 through the NHTSA addressing an oil management condition on certain 2017 to 2019 engines. The condition is called sumping, oil pooling in the crankcase instead of scavenging back to the tank, the flywheels whipping it into an aerated froth, and the results running from power loss and lifter clatter to oil forced out the breathers and left alone long enough, real component damage. Add NHTSA campaign 17V333000, the 2017 Touring Oil Cooler Line Clamp Recall, with remedy beginning June 6, 2017. Add 18V734000 on the Clutchmaster cylinder. That is a documented, verifiable, expensive set of problems on a specific engine family. Those bikes are not flooding the used market. The owners are not dumping them the way you'd expect a burned buyer to dump anything. Why? It's not loyalty and it's not ignorance. Most of these guys can recite the bulletin number. The answer sits in the ownership cost side of the ledger, and it's a smaller number than you're imagining. I'll get to it, because the next two bikes set it up. These next two are different in kind, not just in badge. The first pair were bikes people bought new and never let go. These are the ones riders arrive at late, usually after selling something bigger, louder, or harder on the wrists, and then never resell. Second owner retention is the strange metric here, because it's the one that survives the honeymoon. The Honda Goldwing is the obvious case and the least understood. The GL 1800 has been in continuous production since 2001, with the major redesign landing in 2018, and its reputation for going the distance is not marketing. It's the same brand that showed up in that Consumer Reports survey under 16% 4-year failure. But that's not why 68-year-old men buy one used and stop shopping. They stop shopping because of what the bike does to a 200-mile day. Ask yourself the real question: what happens at hour 4 when your lower back is the limiting factor and not the fuel range? A rider at 65 isn't chasing the same thing he chased at 35, and he's usually honest about it in private and vague about it in the parking lot. The Goldwing answers a problem that's genuinely hard to admit to, that the body changed and the appetite didn't. And here's the trap in it. Every Goldwing owner has heard some version of the joke about riding a couch, which means the decision to buy one is a 50-50 chance. It's 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 a 50 costs him something socially, and once a man has paid that price, he does not pay it twice by selling and going back. Look at the used listing sometime. The second one in this pair is the Indian Roadmaster, and it complicates the story usefully. Indian came back under Polaris in 2013. The Thunderstroke 111 arrived for 2014, and the Roadmaster followed. That's a young platform by the standards of everything else on this list. Barely a decade of production history, a dealer network a fraction the size of Harley's, and nowhere near the parts depth. On the 4 inputs we defined in the first 2 minutes, it should score poorly. It doesn't behave that way. Roadmaster owners hold on, and they hold on despite knowing that a breakdown 4 states from home is a genuinely different problem on an Indian than on a Harley. Part of it is that the Roadmaster solved a problem Harley spent 30 years telling riders didn't exist. 50+ years of American cruiser buying came with an unspoken rule. If you wanted the look and the sound, you accepted the compromise. Heat off the rear cylinder in traffic. Vibration you learned to call character. A service interval you planned your summer around. The Thunderstroke platform showed up and quietly declined to make that trade. And a rider who's spent 4 decades absorbing the compromise notices immediately when something stops asking him to. That's a hard thing to give back once you've had it. So he keeps a bike with a thinner dealer network, on purpose, with his eyes open. And he tells himself he'll figure out a breakdown if it happens. Usually it doesn't. And every year it doesn't, the decision looks better. There's also the piece nobody in the industry says on camera. Both of these bikes attract riders who are buying their last one, or think they might be, and that changes the purchase completely. A man buying a bike he expects to replace in 4 years is optimizing for resale, for what the trade-in desk will say, for what his riding group thinks. A man buying the one he intends to finish on is optimizing for exactly one thing, whether it will still work for him at 74. Those 2 buyers walk into the same showroom and are shopping for different products. And the second buyer, once he's found it, has no reason to ever enter that showroom again. That's what the retention figure is actually recording. Not satisfaction, not loyalty. The absence of a reason to shop. So use the recall data as a control here, rather than as a verdict, because that's what it's good for. Harley's June 2025 recall, covering 82,117 soft-tail motorcycles from 2018 through 2024. The rear shock preload adjuster mounting tab that could break and cause sudden tire pressure loss is a serious campaign on a huge fleet. Another 41,000+ units for voltage regulator wiring that could contact the crankcase. These are real, and retention held. Which forces the honest question, the one this whole video is circling. Why do the retention figures on this second pair beat the first pair, when the second pair carries the worst service records and the thinner support networks? If reliability drove ownership length, that sentence would be impossible. Here's the answer. And it's the same answer that explains the Milwaukee 8 problem from earlier. What keeps a bike in a garage isn't the absence of failure. It's the cost of exit. Every one of these machines has a specific thing that makes selling irrational rather than unpleasant. And the manufacturers market at least because they can't sell it to you twice. Run it through. The Road King has a 31-year parts ecosystem. So a failure is a Saturday, not a crisis. The Ultra Classic owner's replacement now costs more and comes with less. The Goldwing buyer paid a social price at purchase and won't pay it again. The Roadmaster owner accepted a thin network going in, priced it, and made peace with it. Nothing about a recall notice changes a calculation he already ran. And the Milwaukee 8 answer finally. The sumping fix is an aftermarket oil pump and scavenge upgrade. And against a $27,749 replacement bike, that repair is a rounding error. Riders didn't keep those bikes because they forgave Harley. They kept them because the math on fixing was never close to the math on replacing, which is where the last 2 belong, and they're the answer rather than entries on a list. The Heritage Classic earns its place because it does the one thing the trade-up cycle can't argue with. It stayed recognizable. For 2025, it carries the Milwaukee 8 117 on the Softail chassis, and it still reads at 50 feet as the same bike it was 2 decades ago. Nobody has ever had to explain to a Heritage owner what he bought. And then there's the one riders won't bring up first. The Tri-Glide Ultra, $37,999 for 2025, with the Freewheeler at $31,999 and the Road Glide 3 at $34,999, filling in below it. The third wheel is the most honest purchase on this entire list, and it's the one men apologize for. Understand what it actually does. It removes the single failure point that ends riding careers, which is holding up 800 pounds at a stoplight with knees that have already had one surgery. It is not a step down. It's the machine that turns a hard stop into another 15 years. And the retention on trikes is exactly what you'd predict once you see it that way. Because a man who buys one has already decided he's not done, and there is no version of that decision that ends in a trade-in. Now the counter case, and this one is going to annoy some people. If ownership length tracked price, prestige, or build quality, the CVO models would top every chart on this list. They don't. The 2025 CVO Street Glide and CVO Road Glide open at $45,999. The CVO Road Glide ST at $44,999. And every one of them is assembled better, finished better, and spec'd harder than anything else in the catalog. And they turn over. Watch the used market for a year, and you'll see the same pattern repeating. Low miles, one owner, listed at a number that has almost nothing to do with what was paid. Why? Because a CVO is purchased inside the trade-up cycle, rather than outside it. The riders on this list who keep bikes forever are riders who exited that cycle. They bought a machine that solved a problem and then stopped shotting. A CVO buyer is doing something structurally different. He's buying the top of a ladder he's still standing on. And the ladder keeps producing new top rungs every single model year with pate he hasn't seen yet. There's nothing wrong with the motorcycle. The Milwaukee 8 117 in it is the sorted, late production version of the engine that caused all that trouble in 2017. The problem is the position it occupies in the buyer's head. A bike bought as the best available thing has a shelf life exactly as long as it stays the best available thing. And Harley controls that clock, not you. Depreciation on these is brutal for the same reason. The resale pool is other people who also want the newest one. And notice what that does to the guy who bought one. He owns the most capable machine in this entire conversation, and he's the one most likely to be scrolling listings in February. That isn't a character flaw. It's the predictable output of buying at the top of a ladder the manufacturer keeps extending. Every rider on this list who stopped shopping did it by defining what he needed and then buying the thing that met the definition. The CVO buyer defined it as best available, and best available is a moving target by design. If you want the version of this that keeps a bike in your garage for 20 years, the CVO is not the mistake. Letting somebody else write your definition is. So, group them by mechanism instead of by rank, because that's what actually predicts this. Bikes that made failure cheap, the Road King and the Heritage Classic, on parts depth and a service procedure every independent shop already knows. Bikes that made replacement expensive, the Electra Glide Ultra Classic, where the factory package became an accessory list, and the early Milwaukee 8 touring bikes, where a pump upgrade beat a $27,749 window sticker without breaking a sweat. Bikes that solved a problem the rider couldn't say out loud, the Gold Wing and the Tri-Glide Ultra. And sitting outside all of it, the CVO, the best built bike in the room, and the one most likely to be someone else's next year. But there's a question underneath all of this that the data doesn't touch. And you're better positioned to answer it than any survey is. When a man keeps a bike for 25 years, did he choose it or did he just stop replacing it? Because those look identical in the driveway, and they are not the same thing at all. One is a decision. The other is what happens when nobody makes a decision. So tell me which one yours is. How long have you had it? What's the closest you came to selling, and what stopped you? And if you think I got one wrong on this list, if you've launched a Roadmaster or a CVO, stay in the same garage for 15 years, and it makes everything I just said look thin, say so with the model and the years. That's the only version of this argument worth having.